Welcome back to another episode of the Figuring It Out Finance Podcast. My name is Chris Rickenbaugh, and this is the podcast where we talk about travel hacking, personal finance, life hacks, and real estate. Go ahead and follow me on all the socials on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and go check out figuringitoutfinance.com, where you can stay up to date on everything I'm doing, as well as signing up for my newsletter. So, today's episode is mainly going to be about the 12-week year. So I did a podcast a while back and a book review on what that book was. It was one that Brian Lubin talked about quite a bit, and I decided to go check it out after reading his book, really liked it, and tried to put my 12-week year plan together. So this is week 13 after the 12 weeks, so now it's starting to, I'm in that time to where I'm planning for my next 12 weeks and then just kind of figuring out what I could do better on the 12-week year. So being the first one, it was pretty interesting because most of it was very centered toward daily actions. And I started, and I'll break down here in a little bit about what I thought was, the big goal and what I backed out of to really, narrow in on exactly where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. So now that I've kind of been on this road for a little bit now, compared to where I was when I started this, so when I started my first 12-week year, or this first part here, I was just out of a job, just back from a week in Colombia, and I was just trying to figure out where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, how was I going to make money. And that's where this came in. So a lot of things shifted around because it got a little bit more centered towards real estate, and Figuring It Out Finance was more of documenting my journey compared to where I started when I thought this was going to be the money-making business. But no, I needed to really focus on real estate, which I really dove into a little bit more. So now in this next 12 weeks, I'll be able to, I think, really push the real estate part of that a little bit more and those small daily actions rather than putting it on the Figuring It Out Finance to where that's pretty much just clicking, Instagram, TikTok, being consistent. So let's hop into it here. But planning my first 12 weeks, I've already kind of talked about it a little bit. I really didn't know where to start. Like I said, I just quit a low-paying sales job and then went on a week-long trip to Colombia where I read about 2 or 3 books. I read From Passive to Passionate, Millionaire Weekend, or $1 Million Weekend. And when I got back, I read the 12-week year. So that's when I put the 12-week year together. So a lot of things were moving and shaking. I was really just trying to get the roots of the Figuring It Out Finance down to where I got the podcast set up. I was getting used to posting on TikTok and Instagram. And then I got the website up and running. I got the newsletter together from $1 Million Weekend. I started to use some of his products, or that Noah Kagan's products. So being able to, start developing that. And then I said, all right, well, it was probably like week 2 or 3 where I said, okay, well, I need to start focusing a little bit more on real estate. So I set up 3 different showings to be able to look at houses. And then I met one of my partners who, it was only on my second. She's like, hey, do you want to go check out a flip I just did? I'm like, sure, let's do it. And then we got to talking. And then she said, well, I don't have time to be able to go look for clients right now and make expired listing calls. And I'm like, well, that's great because I'm doing absolutely nothing here. So I'll be able to, go and do that. So that's what I started doing. And that kind of led me down the road towards finding my first flip, because we got one that was going to be relisted, didn't end up getting relisted. And then I found the flip, and then it kind of all changed. And then I found another partner. Then I found a great contractor. Then here in the past couple weeks, I found 2 other people that want to do deals. And now I'm finding different spaces to be able to look for those opportunities. So how I planned it out was from in kind of 3 different sections over the 12 weeks. So it was figuring it out: finance, real estate, and personal. I had daily actions for each of those areas. So I'm going to break down a couple here for the figuring it out finance. It was publish the podcast 3 times a week, 1 post per weekday on Instagram, 1 TikTok per day, 1 blog every 2 weeks, 1 weekly newsletter, and then publish 2 ebooks. So that was the beginning of what I wanted. And then down towards the end, I changed it. So I took out the 2 ebooks. I took out, what else here? I took out the blog as well. So what that turned into was the two I kind of flipped was the commenting on 5 Instagram posts and then the weekly newsletter, because I didn't have that set up at the time. So the commenting on 5 Instagram posts, that's actually boosted my following a little bit more than I thought it was going to. And then that's where I was surprised a little bit. You know, once I started posting and responding to people on some other Instagram posts, you know, my following started to grow, because my goal in the beginning of the 12 weeks was 100 Instagram followers. I think I only have 43 right now, which still isn't bad for just trying to grow. And then I wanted 100 podcast downloads. So the podcast downloads is what really surprised me, because what I ended up with today is 277. So that one surprised me a little bit more. So I think for this next 12 weeks, I'm going to put a little bit more into the podcast, figure out ways to market that a little bit more, get it out there, and kind of keep seeing where this goes as I'm documenting everything instead of this being the business. So in the beginning, I thought, you know, this is going to be the business. Here's where the meat needs to be. So where it actually needs to be is in the real estate. So when I had, getting in here, when I started, I said 10 for real estate. I had 10 calls per week, 2 meetups per month, 3 Bigger Pockets posts per week, and then update my books on Friday. So how that changed towards the end was 2 hours of expired calls, 3 BP posts per week, and then update my books. So things changed a little bit, because the 10 calls were just going to be to agents on Zillow. So when I started doing the expired calls, it was set, I changed it to 100 calls per weekday, and then it's like 2 hours of calls. So something of that's going to have to change, because I'd like to be able to get a little bit more consistent. Once I got my flip, everything kind of changed to where it's like, all right, I have this is where my thoughts and everything needs to go. So I really kind of slacked on that towards about halfway through whenever I started the flip. And then moving on to the personal, I had 10 pages of informational book per day. So reading, drink 3/4 gallon of water, no soda. And where I started at was no soda at all, or only 1 per day on the weekends. Logging my meals, so tracking the calories, lifting 7 times per week, and then a date night with my beautiful girlfriend once a week. So that pretty much stayed the same the entire time. I don't think I made any changes. So that's a little bit more on the personal side, to where that's pretty much just me trying to figure that stuff out. So where the biggest changes I made, so instead of thinking about this as, 12 weeks where, kind of like you're given an assignment in college, if you're given 4 weeks, you're going to wait till week 4 to do it. So that's where I had on the blogs where I said, 1 blog every 2 weeks, and then I wanted 2 ebooks. So that was the problem right there, is that I could just do that in 1 day. Or for a blog, I could write 1 paragraph about 1 subject per day, rather than just making it 1 entire thing for the 2 weeks. So instead, I changed that because I wasn't having consistent action and I didn't know what to talk about. So that's why I kind of moved that on out of there. So for this next 12 weeks, I think I'd like to keep posting blogs, but they're going to be a little bit shorter, and I'm going to have to figure that out. So it might be one paragraph for a blog per day, maybe one sentence of it, but just something writing. And then I wanted to be able to put out an ebook about travel hacking, about real estate, about what I'm doing. So that's going to be another one to where I write maybe a paragraph per day, 1 page per day. And that's going to be more on the figuring it out finance side, to where I'm going to put a little bit more work into that business. And rather than tracking my hours in it, I'm just going to, track my daily habits. So where I need to be a little bit more disciplined in that, I have a notebook down to the hour, down to like every 15 minutes throughout the day. So I'll be able to really lock in there and log the hours as well. So those are probably the big changes per day. Nothing in the personal space was really changed. But where I struggled was the newsletter, the tracking food, and the Bigger Pockets post. So the newsletter, that's just something I forget about because I only have about 2 to 3 people on my personal newsletter. So it's just something that kind of slips through my mind. And I need to set a certain day. So I think I'm going to set every Wednesday to where I need to do that. And that's where being a little bit more accountable on my side to myself, it's like, okay, every Wednesday I need to come in, I need to knock out this newsletter. Maybe I get a couple weeks ahead and just kind of plan it out. And then for tracking food, that's going to be a little bit more simple because I really just need to set a timer and log it every single time I eat, because it doesn't take that long. But at the end of the night, when I need to log food, I need to do 2 or 3 minutes of Spanish, I need to write down bits and pieces of my day that I've started doing, kind of like a journal. You're sitting there for about 10 to 15 minutes almost, it feels like, and it's just a lot at the end of the night when you're a little bit tired. So doing it throughout the day, and while you're even making the food, it's a little bit easier because it's right there in front of you. So that's where I'm going to put a little bit more of my effort on the personal side, because I really want to slim up before Hawaii. Counting down the days, only about 3 to 4, maybe 5 weeks. Yeah, about 5 weeks away from going on that trip. So a little bit more work to do. And then on the real estate side, I'm going to have to change those a little bit, or change those goals a little bit, because the Bigger Pockets posts I did not do very well in at all. So I'd maybe get one a week, probably one every 3 or 4 weeks. So I need to be a little bit more on that, just a little bit more present on the space. I've had a lot of people reach out to me from there, so I think down the road it's going to be worth doing. It's just being consistent on there, answering some of the questions, or adding a comment where I can to be able to help out the newbies in that space, even asking questions as I get a little bit deeper into this real estate business. But on the real estate side, I'm going to probably, I would say, 100 calls per day. So I think that's a very doable goal, because it doesn't lock me in there for 2 hours. Say if I talk to somebody for 10 to 15 minutes, that chews up a lot of that time. And it really, you want them to be 100 quality calls. So when I'm normally calling about 10:30 to noon, I'm not getting that many pickups, and I think it's just mainly because everybody's at work. So you do get lucky here and there, and it's very hit or miss. But what I have noticed, when I'm calling between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock, I normally get quite a few more pickups. So I think that's something I'm going to lean more towards, and that's not going to be something that locks me in for 2 hours. 100 calls is 100 calls, but if I hit that 2 hour goal in between there, then I'm going to call it a day, just because it's getting reps in there. And a lot of people can listen and say, oh, you just don't want it. Well, I'm looking at a lot of other deals here and being able to put the time and effort into that. And then I need to stay updated on my books. I need to be going to the meetups just to kind of show face that I'm in the Charlotte area, that I'm looking to be serious about this and do this. So the more they see my face, the more they're going to know me, the more they're going to talk to me. And that has paid off pretty well here, just being able to show up and be there and have those good conversations. And now it's a little bit of a different conversation because I'm talking to wholesalers with a reason to talk to them rather than just saying I'm an investor and they say buy my deal. Now I'm actively looking for deals, and how do I raise that income? I'm looking for flips. Here's exactly what I'm looking for. Do you have anything? Nope. All right, move on to the next person. So that's probably where my goals are going to be. And this week I get to kind of just take a little bit of a breather on tracking it. And then I'm going to be able to set it up during this whole week and figure out really where I want to go on the figuring it out finance side, the real estate, and the personal side. So that is my first 12-week year. So if you're interested in getting your habits tracked or tracking your own habits, I'd really highly recommend checking out the 12-week year. A couple of the other books I mentioned were From Passive to Passionate by Brian Lubin, and then $1 Million Weekend by Noah Kagan. I also get a lot of this from the Better Life podcast by Brandon Turner. I really, really love listening to that podcast. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. This was episode number 41 of the Figuring It Out Finance podcast, and this is Chris Rickenbaugh signing off. We'll see you next time.